God bless everybody. Today it is May 31st of 2024, and we are walking into June, and June is going to be an extremely hostile month. Erdogan is getting ready to come in against the Kurds. They're going to invade through Syria. They're probably going to bomb and do some invasions into Iraq. And Erdogan has warned in the last 24 hours that if the Kurds run these elections on June 10th, 11th, depending on the time zone you're in, that they would start a military campaign and new intervention into Syria, mainly because they're going to go down and help the Palestinians also in Gaza. And so I talked about this movement of Alexander the Great, which is this man is going to mimic exactly what Alexander the Great did in the past. And so what is going to happen is, so I had done this video which predicted, well, in my opinion, based on my paradigm of the modern day kings, the three modern day kings, and the parable of the fig tree, that I felt that it would play out. So between April 2024 and April 2025, this would occur, and I believe this will still occur. This was about a month ago. I had talked about how Turkey would come down into Syria, down into Lebanon, actually to Gaza. Then he would move back up to Tyre, Lebanon again, and then go after Erbil and the Kurds. They would drop back down into just east of Baghdad and then push to Shush. Once that happens, the Kurds would then be forced to align with Iran, and as it indicates, Turkey will collapse all this and destroy both these nations. So it's a simple map, same movement as Alexander the Great of the past. So this is a history lesson getting ready to play out. So let's walk through this one more time before we go into why the Kurds matter here. Turkey will come down into Syria. They'll end up in Tyre. I believe that Erdogan or Turkey will control Tyre by the end of July, as it occurred in the past, as Alexander the Great took over Tyre, Lebanon, around the end of July. Then Erdogan or Turkey will move around Jerusalem and inside Israel, between Israel and Jordan, or between Jerusalem and Jordan. So they're going to come down through here, end up in Gaza. If you go back in the history books, Alexander the Great took Gaza by October. So I believe by the end of October you will see that fall. Egypt, on the other hand, which is now getting into the war because they've got all kinds of things going on their border, and so Egypt is now talking about getting into the actual war itself, and so this is a problem with these refugees and things like that. Egypt will capitulate, though, as they did in the past, and they will not attack Turkey at this time. There will be a problem between Antichrist and Egypt as we move forward once Antichrist is on the ground, but this won't occur at this time. Once Egypt capitulates, which would be down in this area, I'm sorry, the map's a little off here, he's going to bring it back. He's going to bring look, he leaves a sixth of his armies around Egypt, and then he brings everything back up to Tyre. He then goes against the Kurds. He's going to end up coming straight across to Erbil. Now think about this. Turkey's bombing and doing invasions on the northern border, forcing all these yellow circles are Kurdish regions that are going to collapse down to Erbil. All these areas are going to collapse as Turkey comes across here. That will collapse down towards Baghdad, just east of Baghdad, and then towards Shush, because the Kurds or the Medes will have to align with Persia and Iran. Once that happens, Turkey will come down and literally smash both these nations and crush them. That will happen around the end of December or the end of this year in 2024. as it happened in the past. It could happen in January, the furthest date out, because the reason I say that is Erdogan then has to bring 10 full nations against Israel and Jerusalem by March, because we have a 6th seal event based on my timeline, my paradigm of the 3 modern day kings and the parable of the fig tree chart that I keep showing you guys out here, which seems to be playing out, and it seems to be extremely accurate. And I don't mean that in my intention. I'm just saying that Daniel laid us out with other prophets, so you would understand that 3 kings of the past reflect 3 kings of the future, and gave you time stamps, which actually gives us specific dates on when things are going to occur. So if the Kurds have an election, or even appear to have an election, or going to have an election on June 10th or 11th, Turkey will start this in invasionary mode, which would start Daniel 8, as well as Ezekiel 38 and 39. You can go into 2 Kings 24. There's all kinds of different references we can use to determine what is coming up here. So I just want you to realize I've made this other video. I predicted this was going to happen. It's in the Bible, guys. I'm not predicting anything that's not out here. I mean, if you just know how to read it. But most people don't understand that Daniel 8 is a history lesson that will repeat, and that Daniel 8 is actually future prophetic. There's not a lot of past there, other than he explains the original attack by Alexander the Great and what happened there, and that he's going to replay it out in the future, just as it happened. And you have to look at the Bible as an instruction manual that's going to show you what's going to happen in the future, because he showed you what happened in the past. He gave you a manual and said, look, if you know your history, which they're taking out of our school systems, and they don't want you to know your history because you might actually figure some of this out on your own without guys like me out here, that you would get it. So let's go look at this Kurdish connection and how Daniel told us it was coming. So the reason I had warned about this prophecy is that if you go into Daniel 9 and especially 11, the first thing that's indicated in both those chapters is about Darius the Mede, or Darius the Mede, however you want to say it. Okay, so let's go look at that real quick. Now, one thing that's so important about Daniel and the prophets, and all of them did it, but Daniel was extremely good about it, was he would give you a timeline and a timestamp in the very beginning of his chapters. Okay, so he would say, you know, of this king, of the first month of this first day of this king, this occurs. He wants you to understand that, because if you break that out in latter days, you would understand, if you know the Jewish Hebrew calendars, which there's 2 of, and you need to understand which ones work and how they work together, that you could actually predict the date of the attack of the Hamas October 7th attack. I've shown you that. Starts at the beginning of Tishri on the first day of the Feast of Trumpets, work 21 days into his vision, takes you right to October 7th. Okay, it's all in the Bible. This is what I've been trying to explain to you. He doesn't leave you in the dark in any way, shape, or form. All the answers are here if you know how to look for them. But look at this. In the first year of Darius, son of, I can't say it, Ashurus, I'm sorry, I'm terrible with this, the seed of the Medes, or the Kurds, which was made king over the realm of the Chaldeans. Okay, I'm using this map because I think it gives you a fairly good graphic, but you can see that this is Shush, Iran. It goes all the way up to where we're talking about now, except for Turkey, which owns this little finger down here. All the way through here is this area that's going to collapse down to Shush. Okay, so he's telling you what area or optic to look at, and is what's coming up. Okay, this is so important. And what's going to be interesting is Daniel's going to link Revelation to his prophecy, and he's going to show you how and why you should pay attention to what's coming up next. Now, we're not going to get real deep into Daniel here, but we're going to put some serious connections together. But I want to explain something here. So Daniel 8 is about the ram-goat war and the prophecy about the Persians or Iran aligning with the Kurds and the Medes, and then Grecian army, Alexander's Grecian army came down into Turkey through Lydia, formed into Asia Minor. Okay, this isn't a European thing. It only goes to Greece, Rome. That's the furthest it takes up into that area. But realize Alexander came down into Turkey, then into Syria. Okay, so we need to understand the context of what's happening here. And this is the first year of this leader. Extremely important that we understand this. And so as Daniel walks through this, actually you're going to understand that he's bringing you to a very specific point. And when you bring all the chapters, actually 7 through 12, together and you realize how they work, it brings the story to life today. Okay, so so Daniel 8 is about the ram-goat war and the destruction of the Kurds in Iran. But when you get into 9, because after Iran falls, 9's all about the judgment on Israel. And you can see that as you go through here. We're not going to go through here, but this is all about the judgment of Israel and how this is going against his holy land. And he's going to create this covenant for a week, which everybody fights over and different things like that. Okay. When you get into 10, you're in a totally different world. 10 starts talking about how that attack by Hamas is going to happen. He has that dream, that vision. He's sickened for 21 days. I've shown you how that all lines up between Daniel 10, verse 4, 13, and 20. And that from that, you would see that these, you would see an attack on Israel, and you would start to see Turkey come into the battle, and you would start to see a potential invasion by Hezbollah, or those areas north and east of Israel. And it's all a latter-day thing, okay? But and if you go into 11, which is interesting, you have a lot of connections here, because look at this. In the first year of Darius the Mede, you've got this election coming up. That would start the first year of this new president. They can only have a 4-year term. I'm going to show you this in a minute. But then it talks about how the 4 kings of Persia, this last one is richer than all. Well, then he just perished in a helicopter accident. We're not talking about the supreme leader. Supreme leader's on a totally different level and doesn't really do anything. The leader that we're talking about is the one that just perished in the helicopter accident, and that he had stirred up all these regions around Grecia or Turkey, which is forcing Turkey to come in because of all the destruction that's happened in the last 2 decades. Erdogan's actually been there watching all this the whole time. And it talks about Darius the Mede and his first year again, which would be in 2024 after this election in June 10th and 11th. So they're going to have it. This election's going to happen, and Erdogan's not going to be happy, and he's going to do something about it. So there's your other stamp. You go to chapter 9. Let's go look at that again real quick. I just want to show you guys all this. So you got the first year of Darius the Mede. When you go into 11, you got first year of Darius the Mede. Then look at this, because Turkey's going to get in here, and then he says something extremely important as you walk down through this chapter. So when you get into Turkey coming in, he becomes extremely strong, and he actually destroys Iran and the Kurds, and then he's broken and divided into the four winds of heaven. Okay, this is extremely important because now he's giving you a stamp to two places, okay? Actually, 2 or 3 places, and I'll show you a couple of these places so that you understand where he's taking you. So when you go back to Daniel 8, he indicates in Daniel 8:8 that when the horn of the goat is broken after he destroys the two-horned ram, that he's broken also and is cast towards the four winds of heaven. Okay, so the little horn then comes out after that. That's what I mean. Look, if you cannot wrap your head around that Erdogan is a white horseman that's going to bring a quarter of the world into war, in the SEALs war, before we start the trumpet phase, then you'll never get it. Okay? Erdogan is the white horseman, the first seal. He's going to bring Turkey into this war, but he's going to be destroyed on the 6th seal event. And then you're going to have a resurrection through the trumpets into an antichrist on the 6th trumpet. Why is that? Because Revelation tells you this. But I wanted to show you this. You have an indication of the four winds in Daniel 8:8. Okay, which takes you to Daniel 11. Okay, and when you go to Daniel 11, he talks about the four winds, that this broken horn is going to be cast into the four winds. But what happens prior to that? You see that vision by Daniel, and you see the judgment of Israel and Jerusalem, where 2/3 of them are going to be in a very bad condition, with 1/3 of them being removed. Okay, so I've tried to explain this many times, and let's go look at it so that you understand the context. When you go to chapter 6 and you go to the bottom of chapter 6, okay, he is releasing the 6th seal here. So in Revelation 6:12 through 17, we're talking about a 6th seal event, okay? But if you go to 8:1, which we'll do, so let's go to 8, look at that real quick. The first thing he does is release the 7th seal. So you have, on the end of chapter 6, you have the 6th seal. When you go to chapter 8, you got the 7th seal. So you have a vision in the middle of this in chapter 7 called the vision of the elect. And you got to cut that out. If you cut that out and go from 1 to 6, 8 to 10, basically 8 to 10, or through 10 to 10:7, then you start another vision. It's a chronological book. Okay, so you need to understand where the visions are and how to cut them out, is what I guess I'm saying. So you go from chapter 6 to chapter 8. That opens the 7th seal. When you go back to chapter 7 and you look at this, this is what I'm talking about, the four winds. So he has this vision of the elect in chapter 7, between chapter 6 and 8, where the 6th and 7th seal break. He sees what's going to happen to the vision of the elect, how they're going to be selected, how they're going to be persecuted, how they're going to mostly fail or die in their process of trying to save souls on this planet. Not necessarily fail, I mean, that's a terrible word, but they're going to perish, most of them. God shortens the second half, or they won't survive. A lot going on there. But he talks about this on the 7th seal, right after the 6th seal breaking and the decimation of Gog of Ezekiel, which is the first seal, which is Erdogan of Turkey, which is going to be decimated on the 6th seal and brought back as a resurrected Antichrist on the 6th trumpet, as the bottomless pit opens on the 5th trumpet. The four winds are being held back here on the 7th, or on the 7th seal. Extremely important that we understand these connections. So he's holding back the four winds on the seventh seal so he can select the 144,000 because they're getting ready to go up against the Antichrist. We're getting ready to start the trumpet phase. But look what happens when you go into chapter 9. And I'm just going to walk through these so you guys can see how this works. Okay, so you have the fifth trumpet sound, you have the bottomless pit open, and then what happens, we're not going to get into a lot of detail there, you have the sixth trumpet. This is extremely important because look at there. He loosens the four angels on the Euphrates, which are the four winds, for the time of the hour, the day, the month, and the year, to slay a third of men. Okay, a third of men is approximately 2.5 billion people, with a radicalized Muslim army of 200 million that are going to be unleashed upon the Christians and Jews in this new caliphate that Erdogan's getting ready to unleash through the Ottoman Empire. But he's going to die on the sixth seal, and then we're going to see an Antichrist come down for the 1260 days. So the sixth trumpet is when the four winds are released upon the world, but they're held on the seventh seal. So if you understand that, and then you go back into Daniel and he says, talking about the four winds, you go, wow, I know what that's all about. They're being held on the seventh seal when the elect are selected prior to them going against Antichrist, which comes up on the sixth trumpet, and then they're released prior to the 1260 days. And that's terrible, because that's going to be, you think this is bad? Oh, you've not seen anything yet. People, you got to understand where this is going. This is going to make strong men's hearts fail. You have run out of time to start. Well, you've got some time, but you're running out of time as the markets are getting ready to collapse. Look, if Turkey comes into this, oil will spike immediately. The markets will react immediately. Metals will pop immediately. The bonds will spike. You're going to have mass confusion on markets, as well global markets, as well as geopolitical madness out here as everything ramps up in the Middle East, and Joe Biden's trying to go through an election cycle and discern whether he has to either win an election or throw Israel to the wolves. That's simple. So let's get back in. I'm not going to go much deeper than that, because you can see the connections. If you follow me at all, you understand what the connections are. So this man, which is going out, he's not going to be the president anymore. He's been in there for 4 years, has finally, through a lot of finagling, has finally set the date of June 10th, 11th for these elections. They were going to push them up 3 months. That didn't work out. Now he's going to push them to June, or just leave them at June 10th. This is infuriating Erdogan and Turkey. Turkey says, if you do this, if you have these elections, if you build a state of the Kurdish region, an actual state of Kurdistan in this area, we will attack you and we will destroy you. Okay? So he gets a 4-year term, and there is 2 parties that are vying for power in this election. And so you've got to go in and do some research. This takes a little while, but it indicates that he's basically been there since 2019. This is 2024. He has to leave. There's an election coming up now that's going to bring in these 2 additional parties. I'm not sure which guy will win. There may be more than 2 people in the election. Last time there were like 5 or 6 ultimate candidates that ran, so we don't necessarily know who's going to be Darius the Mede, or reflect or mirror him from past to future. And so we don't really know. You can see this area that the 2 parties sort of deal with, and so this is good. This is huge in the Bible and Daniel. He actually spells this out for you guys, that this is coming. There's a lot of races going on in these Kurdish elections. The president's being elected, so there's a lot of power being grabbed up or manipulated here, and so that's extremely important that it's radiating out to multiple levels of their government. There's two main candidates. I'm not even going to try to say their names. This is the first candidate. They're all both Kurdish politicians. This is what he looks like. I had to pull up a picture. Now, the reason I'm bringing these two guys up because they're the front runners, at least based on the information that I'm finding. And so this guy's not as popular as the X guy that I'm going to show you. This seems to be the party that might win, but I can't guarantee that. So this might be Darius the Mede. He's been very active in a number of things within the Kurdish regions. He's been there for quite a while, and he's a very popular individual over there. So I'm speculating, my speculation, my opinion that he might win. And so this might be the guy that takes up this challenge, because this is going to be a challenge. You got to understand, this guy's going to come into an election cycle in June as a president of this nation and fail by the end of the year. He's going to be decimated with his nation. This was horrific. And that's what I mean. 1/3 of mankind will be affected in the next 9 months to 12 months. That's simple. You have not seen anything in what's going on out here. If you think it's bad, you've not seen anything. Anyway, these are your two candidates. I wanted to show you the connections in the Bible so you could easily spot why this is going to matter to you right now. So Egypt's extremely concerned right now because Israel's gone down against Rafah and they've taken over the southern border of Gaza along the border of Egypt, and Egypt's not allowing refugees in, and so this is causing a massive issue down there for Egypt. But Egypt's going to capitulate here because they won't attack Turkey when they get down there. So that's what I mean. If you go back in Jeremiah, you realize that Egypt flees from this battle. They leave Israel in the dust and leave them basically on their own, and so does all other countries, and Turkey's going to just come down and absorb everything here. Even Egypt will capitulate to this madness as we move forward. So this is extremely profound, important information that you should be aware of, and you're going to watch this break out. Now, I had indicated this was all going to start to happen around May, June. I wasn't really sure. I figured the end of June or end of May, first part of June. You also have this 6-planet alignment that's happening. So this starts on June 3rd and runs through this process of this election. And I think as these things line up, it's a PowerPoint. God tells us to look at the skies, look at the stars, look at the moon, look at the sun. Not get into horoscopes and things like that, because that's not what this is about. Look, all the Jewish calendars work off the sun and moon, and so you need to understand the sun, moon, and stars and things in the skies matter to us. And their Jewish calendar months start on the beginning of the new moon and end on the end of the moon cycle. So to understand that, but it also works off of the sun too. So that's one thing. The Gregorian works off the sun calendar. The Quran works off the moon calendar, but the Hebrew Jewish calendars work off both the sun and moon. So that's extremely important to understand. So you have this massive alignment. There's just a lot going on here. And then you got the Fed meeting on June 12th, and he can't lower rates or it's going to be political now, that especially with Trump being indicted on this kangaroo court and all these pumped up charges against him. So we'll see. And also I think Trump's being sentenced on the 11th. So you could have a lot going on during that time. I'm just saying, guys. So God bless. Put your oil in your lamp. But Darius the Mede in chapter Daniel 9 and 11 matter to us today because you are in end times prophecy. So get your oil in your lamp and get right with God. Find the open door. Find Jesus. And God bless and be safe. Amen.